have two different places where I keep my ongoing projects. I have the project box, and I have a presently coming apart. Oh, that's a stack of paper. A list of projects on a pin board that I keep up next to my desk. And then, because I like lists and sometimes they're helpful, I also wrote them all down on a piece of paper so that I could remember them. One of them was a Carrie the Crafter inspired painted pages in a composition journal. So let's look at that one first. That is this book. And by Carrie inspired, what I mean is he'll take pictures from magazines, pull specific colors out, and then do a page. So I'm trying that to see what happens. So this picture had this purple color, it had this bluish color, it had this bright yellow here, and then I also wanted to pull in some shapes. So this has got this circular window, some arches, a couple of straight lines. So I took a stamp that I have and some straight edges. I don't know if I'm thrilled with it, and it is on grid paper, but it's something to try. How can I put this? There's something that you hear when you're playing a musical instrument, that it takes 1,000 hours to get good at whatever music you're playing. So if you practice for 15 minutes a day, 365 days out of the year, you'll have your first couple hundred hours. So you want to practice as often as you possibly can. I know that that's said of learning how to play guitar. That's also said of writing. If you're writing poetry or anything like that, your first 1,000 words are just crap. And I've heard other people, one moment, please. I've heard other people refer to it as cleaning out the pipe, that there's gunk. There's your attitude about the day. There's your worries about your art. There's your, all the things, the not knowing anything, being afraid of making mistakes. And you have to get all that out of the pipe. And so my hope is to use this book as one of those ways to just get stuff out of the pipe, and hopefully learn things at the same time about what colors work well together, what shapes work well together. I'm kind of at a pause on this one briefly. I might choose to glue regular paper down in here so that I'm not working directly on the grid paper, which will make this book thicker than the spine, so maybe I won't. But I did go through magazines one day and pulled out two different sets of things. One was all the pictures that have colors that I liked, how the colors were working together. And a different one that had all these architectural shapes on them. Yeah. So this with the hearts and the thing, and this one's got spheres and straight lines, and this one's got these arches. So yes, I have two entirely different stacks of papers in here to help me do each page. And each day that I work in here, I'll pull a picture from one stack, a picture from the other stack, and then try to do something akin to this in it. And then someday I'll have a pretty page that I will put over the top because the cover's not doing it for me. But so that's a project. Gamer themed ATCs. Yes, that's this project. I play a lot of board games, and I wanted to make a series of ATCs. So these started out with woven. There's some paper weaving in here. The pieces of paper that created the weave are all from the Origins Oh, what do they call that book? It's the free book they give you that shows you the maps of where everything is at the convention hall, that tells you the time that the events are going on. It was from the swag book that you get when you go to a convention, specifically Origins, which is a board gaming convention here in Ohio. By the way, I'm coming to you from Ohio, in the United States, just south of the Great Lakes. So I did those, and then I didn't like how vibrant they were, so I covered it over with some white paint. And then I took a template. It's the handle from a six-pack. I folded out. So I took the template, and in this case, it was a six-pack of root beer. Come on, people. I'm not a lush. And drew that out, painted more white on the outer edge so that you can see the pop here, but not on the outside edge. And then I outlined them in colors that most gamers are familiar with. There's the red, blue, yellow, green, and then 4 colors that often get used. Black is common, purple is common, white is common, but or is getting more common, but it wouldn't have worked with this project. Also orange and pink. So these are 4 offset colors that'll often get used when you're moved beyond red, yellow, blue, and green. 2 of these are complete. I still need to work on the others. So this is a spinner. I managed to find this little arrow, and I was able to create a spinner. And then in the blue category, we have victory chips. These are all modern board game references. So you could be collecting stars, you could be collecting crowns. In one of the games, you collect acorns. This particular one is a 5-point victory chip from Race for the Galaxy. It's one of my favorite games. So it also stands for V for victory. Hopefully people will understand that. I'm not sure who's ever going to get these gamer ATCs, but I'm having fun making them. I haven't quite figured out what the rest of these are going to be. There's probably going to be a pawn on one, a die on another. Somewhere I have listed all of the things that these are going to be, but finding the pieces so that I can raise it just slightly off the page. Modeling paste may end up coming into this process. So there's the Gamer ATC project. 100 pieces of a train. When I first set out to start watercoloring, I want to paint a watercolor picture of a train. And so I decided that maybe it would make sense if I did a 2-inch by 2-inch piece of a train until I had 100 pieces of a train. It would give me more practice with watercolors, and then I would know what all the different parts of the train were, so that when I went to paint the whole train, I would have had experience painting that part of the train at least once. So that's the drive wheel, the bell, whistle, the smokestack, and that's all the farther I got. So when I get back to the watercolors, it's my little easel, and the start of the 100 pieces of a train project. Birdhouse ATCs. I was in an ATC, it was either ATCsforall.com or it was any one of a billion ATC groups on Facebook, I'm not sure which. And the prompt was houses for birds. And I took it kind of literally in the sense that I wanted to know which bird lived in each house. So this is a house for an emu, and then I kept drawing houses but forgot to write down which birds went with them. Oh, the curved gable is where the harpy lives, so that's a harpy house. That might also be a harpy house. I seem to have 2 of them. A burrowing owl is going to live in a hobbit hole. A penguin's going to live in an A-frame. An eagle's going to live in a lighthouse. And the emu lives in the Octagon Palace. So I'm still going to do this. I missed the deadline for the ATC that this was for, but I still like the project. I think it's still cute, so I'm still going to do it at some point. This one isn't even written down, and nor should it be. This is just something dumb I want to complete one day. This is if you cut a piece of paper a certain way, you can make a book out of one piece of paper. This was a score sheet to a game, and I'm going to turn it into a book because I can. That's not even on the list of projects. Capital One credit cards, you guys have seen that project. Business cards. At some point I need to make business cards. I haven't done that yet. Alaska Natives project. Where did I put that? It's in here. I don't want to co-opt anybody else's art. I don't want to do the... I'm at a loss for words. Cultural appropriation. That is not the thing I want to do. But I do want to make more people aware of Tlingit art, Yupik art, Inupiaq art, Danaina art, Tanana art, I'm going to pronounce this one wrong, Gwich'in art, and Tagish art. These are all the native, well, maybe not all, these are many of the First Nations Native American tribes up in Alaska. And I don't think folks here in the lower 48 ever get exposure to any of this art. I also really like the jingle dress and the hoop dance, which are from down here. I'm not sure what I'm doing with this yet, or if I'm doing with this yet, but it's something I'm thinking about. And so oh, these are the business cards. Okay. Anyway, it's a project, or it might be a project. Right now, it's the framework of a project, concepts of a project. 9 pick 3 ATCs. Where did that project go? Is that on the board? Yeah, that's on the board. So again, back when I was doing ATCs all the time, a person was going to, if you told her you wanted to take part, she was going to assign you a theme, a color, and an element. Well, I was going to commit to 9 of them, and she had published the lists, so I rolled up for myself 9 different cards, each with a different theme, a different color, a different element. And that's this here. One of these days, I will make all of the ATCs that go with this. For example, vintage in the color white and the element of stickers. That's a thing I could do. This is just one of those projects that if I have time, if I feel like it, maybe I only have time for an ATC, I can make one. And it could be a part of that group of things. Maker's Collage and Maker's Color Combo you already saw. Quilt Squares Painting. Do I have that here? Yes, I have that here, if I can get it off the board. Barn quilts were a thing in Ohio, West Virginia, I'm not sure where else, where you would paint a quilt square and put it on the side of your barn. And most of the ones here in Ohio have gotten really degraded over time. They're really not looking good anymore. But there's a fella online, Dale J. Travis, who took the time to find all of them, list where they were, give the GPS coordinates, and if you click through to the number, there's a photograph of each of them. And what I would like to do is take those train-size squares, like this, maybe larger, but possibly train-size squares, and recreate each one of these in watercolor, but not as they are on the barn quilt, but as they would be if I had used a quilting fabric to make them. And then I want to tie each of these together so that you have the whole thing as if it were a quilt made of barn quilt squares. And then on the back, it'll say, you know, the coordinates of each barn quilt. I think it'll be neat. It's going to take more research and more time than I've put into it so far. But, you know, never run out of projects. Then you'll always have something to do when you sit down at your art table. So that's a project. Tuesday Animals. Did I write those down anywhere? There was one day that I was driving for work, and I saw just a ridiculous number of wildlife that day. That particular day, I'm pretty sure we got to... It was the left side. The right side was other stuff. But that day I had seen vultures. I wrote gophers, but it's actually groundhogs. Deer, coyote, squirrel, a red-winged blackbird, a fox, a horse, cows, sheep, llamas and alpacas. There's an emu farm nearby. I'd seen a rabbit. I'd seen a hawk. I'd seen ducks and geese, a robin, a cardinal, a finch, and various cats and dogs. When I had been up in Alaska, I had also seen elk, moose, reindeer, grouse, well, the swan I don't think I saw in Alaska, salmon, beluga I had seen up in Alaska, Steller's jay, eagle. And so these are just all the different animals I see during my day job when I'm out just driving around. I'm going to have to add... No, because I didn't actually see that. And I've already forgotten what it's called. There's another animal that I learned about recently that I didn't see, but fisher cat? Yeah, fisher cat. But yeah, I love the variety of animals I see during my day job. And so there's a Tuesday Animals project that's going to be doing something with all the different animals that I see in the course of my day. I don't know what yet. Let's see what other projects are on the project page. Magazine inspirations. I probably meant this book, but maybe not. I also have this picture that I pulled out of a magazine, and I find it really inspiring, as it would be fun to recreate this probably in watercolor. I also pulled these two photos that have a very gateway, walking down a path through a repeating motif, and it's arches. I tend to think of them as repeating arches, and I love that as a concept, and you can see that in both of these pictures. And so I think that's what I meant by magazine inspirations. In fact, the next one is repeating arches. I have two other photos, I think, on my phone that are of that as well. 3 mental images. I don't have this book, it's out in the other room. There are 3 still photos that live in my head of things that I have seen in my lifetime that I want to recreate as a painting. One is someone I saw through a window and just the way the light was hitting their face. Another was a particular stone arch on my way to work, and the perfect lighting one day, and I wish I had had a camera with me. I would have taken a photograph. I was also late for work. And it was pristine, so I want to paint that. At the moment, I can't remember the third one, but there are 3. Reluctant art journal, you guys have seen me talk about that. Using convention ribbons. In conventions, the kind of conventions I go to, board gaming conventions, you get ribbons and they hang off the end of your badge. And they're standard ribbony material. They're long and thin. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I have several, and I can get several more. The next con I go to, I'm sure I'll get more. I want to use them as a craft thing, but I don't know what. Alaska Travel Glue Book. I kept so many papers from when we traveled to Alaska, and I want to do something with these. It'll probably be a glue book where I put the pretty things into possibly one of the brown paper journals I created. That's the thing. That's a whole project by itself. Painted pages, we talked about that. Foil tape and texture paste, you saw. I did that earlier this week. In fact, I should probably cross that off because I did that. That is a thing I actually did. Foil tape. Okay. Making the Big Journal. We made the Big Journal. Groundhog Innkeeper. That's a book. Haiga. I, for a long while, wrote haiku. And I love writing haiku. It's one of my favorite types of poetry to write. I studied poetry in college. Don't judge. I also did social work in college. Haiga are when you have a very abstract kind of ink on colored paper sort of image, and you write a haiku that ideally evokes that the image evokes something in the haiku, and the haiku evokes something in the image, and that's a haiga. So I'm hoping to do some of those now that I have watercolor and I've got some inks that move, and I'd like to see what I can do with those two things. School project. I have a project that lives in my head related to the excess of school shootings in the US. That's all the more I want to say about that. The UPC project. I have UPCs. I think they could be cool. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but that's a project. All right, I'm not on to page 3 yet. So I will never not have something to do when I sit down. I have so many things that live in my head, and so some are up on my pin board here. And, oh, there's even 2 or 3 on here that I didn't even talk about. This is a whole page of ideas. This is a page of another idea. I did a full deck challenge where you alter an entire deck of playing cards. I did the one for 2025. These are all the prompts for the one in 2026. I might choose to do that. We'll see. I'm 3 weeks in. I haven't started yet, so I wouldn't count on it. At some point, I will show you that finished project. I'm not going to get into it today, but this is what you end up with when you do a full deck challenge. It's lovely. It hangs over here on my finished project board. So yeah, my brain just generates ideas constantly at this point in time. So I would like to pick a thing and work on it today before this video gets entirely too long.